Have you ever heard stories so strange that they make you question what really happened in the past? Tonight, we are diving into 3 chilling mysteries from American history and folklore that still confuse people today. First, we travel deep into the forests of Illinois to explore the strange burial ground known as Crooks Mound, a site where archaeologists reportedly discovered unusually large human skeletons that started rumors about ancient giants. Then we move to the dark swamps of Louisiana, where locals have shared terrifying stories for generations about a creature called the Rougarou, a werewolf-like monster said to roam the night and punish those who break sacred rules. And finally, we visit the historic battlefield near New Orleans, where people claim that on quiet nights, the sounds of a long-finished battle can still be heard echoing across the land. 3 locations, 3 mysteries, and stories that refuse to disappear. The giant burial site of Crooks Mound. Deep inside the forests of southern Illinois, in a quiet place where tall trees block the sunlight and the wind moves slowly through the leaves, there is a mysterious hill of earth that looks completely natural at first glance. If you walked past it, you might think it was just another small rise in the land. But hidden inside that mound is a story that has confused historians, archaeologists, and mystery lovers for many years. This place is known as Crooks Mound, one of the most unusual burial sites ever discovered in North America. At first, people believed it was just an ancient Native American burial mound, something that exists in many parts of the United States. But when archaeologists finally studied the mound carefully, they found something that shocked them. Inside this mound were human skeletons. But these were not ordinary skeletons. Many of them were unusually large. One, the smaller, unusual board, were unusual. Some of the bones suggested that the people buried there may have been far taller than the average person of their time. A few early reports even claimed skeletons measuring around 7 feet tall or more. For ancient times, when the average human height was much shorter than today, this was extremely unusual. And that discovery started a mystery that still continues today. To understand why Crooks Mound is so important, we first need to go back hundreds of years before modern cities, highways, and technology existed in this region. Long before European settlers arrived, the land around southern Illinois was home to several Native American cultures. One of the most famous groups connected to burial mounds in this region was the ancient culture linked to Cahokia Mounds, one of the largest prehistoric cities in North America. These people built massive earthen structures for ceremonies, religious purposes, and burials. Building a mound was not easy work. People carried baskets of soil again and again, slowly creating hills that sometimes reached impressive heights. These mounds were often used to bury important leaders, warriors, or respected members of the community. Crooks Mound was believed to be part of that long tradition. However, when excavations began in the early 1900s, the results raised more questions than answers. When researchers dug into the mound, found many skeletons buried together, but what surprised them most was the size of some of the bones. According to early records, several skeletons appeared much larger than normal. Some skulls were wider and heavier than expected. Leg bones seemed longer. A few early investigators believed these individuals may have been part of a group of unusually tall humans. Over time, stories began spreading that Crooks Mound might be a burial place for a giant race that once lived in North America. Of course, this idea quickly became controversial. Some researchers argued that the reports were exaggerated. They believed that early archaeologists may have measured bones incorrectly or misinterpreted the findings. Others suggested that a few tall individuals could naturally appear in any population. But the mystery didn't disappear. In fact, the strange reputation of Crooks Mound continued growing as more people heard about the discovery. Another unusual detail about the mound is how many individuals were buried there. Instead of a single burial or a small group, Crooks Mound contains the remains of dozens of people. This suggests that the mound may have been used over a long period of time. Some skeletons were placed carefully, showing signs of ceremonial burial. Others seemed to be buried more quickly, which created more questions about what events might have happened there. Were these respected leaders of a community? Were they victims of a conflict or disease? Or was the mound used as a burial place for a special group of people who held an important role in society? The truth is that no one knows for sure. Another reason the mystery continues is that many early excavation records were not detailed by modern scientific standards. Archaeology in the early 20th century was very different from today. Some bones were removed without careful documentation, and some may have been lost or stored without clear records. Because of this, modern scientists cannot always re-examine the original discoveries. This has allowed rumors and speculation to grow over the years. Some mystery writers and internet theories claim Crooks Mound proves that giants once lived in North America. They suggest these giants may have been part of a forgotten civilization or an unknown human group. However, most modern archaeologists believe there are more reasonable explanations. Human height can vary widely. Even today, some individuals naturally grow much taller than average. In ancient populations where nutrition and health varied greatly, a few tall individuals could appear and stand out dramatically among the rest. Another possibility is that soil pressure over time may have shifted bones in ways that made them appear longer during early excavations. But even with those explanations, Crooks Mound remains a fascinating sight. The mound itself is not massive like some famous prehistoric structures. It rises gently from the ground, covered with grass and surrounded by forest. There are no large monuments, no giant statues, and no dramatic ruins. And that quiet appearance makes it even more mysterious. Because beneath that calm surface lies a burial ground, holding the remains of many people who lived centuries ago. Today, Crooks Mound is located within the protected lands of Shawnee National Forest, a large forest area known for its hills, rock formations, and ancient archaeological sites. The forest itself covers hundreds of thousands of acres and attracts hikers, campers, and nature lovers every year. Most visitors come to enjoy the scenery, unaware that hidden among the trees are places connected to very old human history. Unlike famous tourist landmarks, Crooks Mound does not have large crowds, gift shops, or guided tours happening every hour. In fact, the site remains relatively quiet and protected. Archaeologists prefer to keep such locations undisturbed as much as possible. Digging into ancient burial sites can damage important information about the past, and many Native American communities also believe these places should be treated with respect. Because of this, further excavations at Crooks Mound have been very limited. The site has slowly returned to its natural state, with trees growing nearby and grass covering the mound. There are both positive and negative sides to the current situation. On the positive side, the area is protected inside a national forest. This means the land is less likely to be destroyed by construction or urban development. The forest environment also helps preserve the mound naturally. Researchers still study the site through historical records and non-invasive techniques, which means they can learn more without disturbing the burial ground. However, there are also negative aspects. Because the mound is not widely monitored, there is always a risk of illegal digging by treasure hunters or people searching for artifacts. Unfortunately, some individuals try to steal bones or objects from ancient sites, which destroys valuable historical evidence. Another issue is that many early records about the skeleton discoveries were incomplete. Without clear documentation, modern scientists sometimes struggle to separate fact from exaggeration. That uncertainty is one reason the mystery continues. Personally, I think Crooks Mound represents something deeper than just the question of whether ancient giants existed. What makes this place truly interesting is how it reminds us that history is often incomplete. Many stories from the past were never fully recorded. People lived their lives, built communities, buried their loved ones, and then time slowly covered those memories under layers of earth. When we rediscover places like Crooks Mound, we are only seeing small pieces of a much larger story. Maybe the tall skeleton reports were exaggerated. Maybe they were accurate. Maybe they represented rare individuals who simply grew taller than others in their community. Whatever the truth is, Crooks Mound still holds secrets beneath its soil. And sometimes, mysteries like this are important because they keep people curious about the past. They encourage research, discussion, and respect for ancient cultures that existed long before our modern world. Today, the present situation of Crooks Mound is relatively calm and protected. The mound still stands quietly within Shawnee National Forest, surrounded by nature. It is not heavily developed as a tourist site, which helps preserve the area. Visitors can explore the forest nearby, but the mound itself is treated as a sensitive historical location. While researchers continue studying the history connected to the site, Crooks Mound remains a silent reminder of an ancient burial ground whose full story may never be completely known. The Rougarou werewolf legend. Imagine living in a quiet village surrounded by dark swamps and thick forests. At night, the wind moves slowly through the trees and strange sounds echo from the water. The air feels heavy and people close their doors early because they believe something dangerous might be watching from the shadows. For generations, people in southern Louisiana have told stories about a terrifying creature that roams the night. A creature that is not fully human and not fully animal. A creature that hunts silently in the dark swamps and appears when people least expect it. This creature is known as the Rougarou. The Rougarou legend is one of the most famous and mysterious stories in Louisiana folklore. Many people describe it as a kind of American werewolf. But unlike the classic European werewolf stories, the Rougarou has its own unique history, culture, and terrifying details that make the legend even more interesting. The story begins hundreds of years ago, when French settlers moved to the region that is now Louisiana. They brought many traditions, beliefs, and stories with them from Europe. One of those stories involved creatures that could change from human to wolf. Over time, these stories mixed with local traditions and the mysterious environment of the Louisiana swamps. The result was the legend of the Rougarou. According to the stories, the Rougarou looks like a large wolf or dog with glowing red eyes and a tall, human-like body. Some people describe it as having long claws, sharp teeth, and thick, dark fur. Others say it walks on two legs like a person, but moves quickly like an animal. The creature is said to live in the deep swamps and forests near places like Acadiana, where French-speaking Cajun communities have lived for generations. In these small communities, the Rougarou legend became more than just a scary story. It became a warning. Parents told children that the Rougarou would come for those who misbehaved or stayed outside too late at night. In some traditions, the story was also used to encourage people to follow religious rules. One version of the legend says that a person can become a Rougarou if they break important religious rules during Lent. According to this belief, someone who ignores the fasting rules for other versions say the curse spreads differently. Other versions say the curse spreads differently. If a Rougarou attacks someone and draws blood, the victim might slowly transform into a Rougarou as well. This idea made the creature even more frightening because it meant the curse could spread from person to person. Stories like this often spread easily in places where the environment already feels mysterious. And Louisiana swamps are some of the most mysterious landscapes in North America. One famous swamp connected to many Rougarou stories is the Atchafalaya Basin. It is the largest swamp in the United States, filled with thick forests, winding waterways, and wildlife that moves quietly through the water. During the night, the swamp becomes even more mysterious. The sound of frogs, insects, and distant animals echoes through the darkness. Fog sometimes rises from the water, making the trees appear like dark shadows. In such an environment, it is easy to imagine strange creatures moving between the trees. Many local residents say the Rougarou is not just a myth. Some claim they have seen large animal shapes moving in the darkness, or heard strange howls that did not sound like any normal wolf or dog. Of course, Louisiana does not naturally have wild wolves today. That detail has made the story even more mysterious. Some people believe the sounds may actually come from coyotes or large dogs that roam the forests. Others think the stories may have grown over time as people shared experiences and added new details to the legend. But the legend continues to survive strongly in Cajun culture. In fact, the Rougarou is so famous that it has become a symbol of local folklore. Every year, the town of Houma celebrates the creature during the Rougarou Fest. During the festival, people dress up as the creature, create large monster costumes, and celebrate the story through art, music, and storytelling. Instead of being something only frightening, the Rougarou has become part of the region's cultural identity. It appears in books, movies, and local tourism campaigns. However, not all versions of the legend are playful. Older stories describe the Rougarou as something much darker. In those tales, the creature hunts alone in remote swamps, watching travelers and waiting for the right moment to attack. Some versions even say the creature can hide among humans during the day, appearing as a normal person until night falls. This idea made the legend especially frightening in earlier times, when small villages were isolated and communication was limited. When strange sounds came from the forest at night, people sometimes believed the Rougarou might be nearby. There are also different theories about how the creature first appeared. Some historians believe the legend evolved from the French word loup-garou, which means werewolf. French settlers brought these stories with them when they arrived in North America during the colonial period. Others believe the legend mixed with Native American traditions about powerful forest spirits and animal transformations. Over many generations, these ideas slowly blended together until the unique Rougarou legend was created. That is one of the most fascinating things about folklore. Stories change and grow as they pass from one generation to another. What begins as a simple warning can slowly become a powerful cultural symbol. Today, most people do not truly believe a werewolf-like creature is hiding in the Louisiana swamps. Science explains many of the strange sounds and sightings that once frightened people. Animals such as coyotes, bobcats, or even large alligators moving through the water, can create noises that sound very unusual in the dark. However, the mystery still attracts curiosity. Some paranormal researchers and cryptid hunters continue exploring swamp areas, hoping to find evidence of unknown creatures. While no scientific proof of the Rougarou has ever been found, the legend remains alive through stories, festivals, and local traditions. There are both positive and negative sides to how the Rougarou legend exists today. On the positive side, the story has become an important part of Louisiana's cultural heritage. It helps preserve Cajun traditions and brings communities together during festivals and storytelling events. Tourism connected to the legend also helps local economies. People travel to Louisiana hoping to experience the mysterious atmosphere of the swamps and describe the famous creature. On the negative side, some people worry that modern commercialization can change the original meaning of the legend. What was once a serious cultural story can sometimes turn into just a tourist attraction or Halloween costume. Another concern is that some visitors exploring swamps at night, hoping to find the Rougarou, can accidentally disturb wildlife or put themselves in pride. Danger. Swamps like the Atchafalaya Basin are beautiful, but also unpredictable environments, filled with deep water, thick vegetation, and wild animals. And all of the trees is air. Why? In my opinion, the Rougarou legend is a perfect example of how humans use stories to explain the unknown. Before modern science and technology, people often created powerful creatures to represent fear, danger, or moral lessons. But even today, when we understand much more about nature, these stories still hold value. They connect communities to their history and remind us how imagination and culture shape the way people see the world. And honestly, when you stand near a quiet swamp at night, listening to strange sounds echo through the darkness, it is not hard to understand why people once believed something mysterious might be out there. Today, the present situation around the Rougarou legend is very different from the past. The creature is mostly viewed as a cultural symbol rather than a real threat. Festivals like Rougarou Fest celebrate the legend with costumes, music, and storytelling. The Louisiana swamps where the stories began are now set up a prophecy where the forests are commonly informed. The company is only preserved. However, the mysterious atmosphere of the forests and swamps still keeps the legend alive, and the Rougarou continues to remain one of the most famous folklore creatures in American history. The Phantom Battle of New Orleans. Imagine standing in a quiet field at night. The air is still, and the sky is dark except for a few distant stars. Nothing seems unusual at first, but then, suddenly, the silence breaks. You hear the sound of marching boots in the distance, then faint voices, then the loud boom of cannons. But when you look around, there is no one there. No soldiers, no army, no battle. Yet the sounds continue. For many years, people living near the historic battlefield of Battle of New Orleans have reported hearing something very strange. Some claim that on certain nights, especially during cold or foggy evenings, the sounds of a long-finished battle return to the land. This mysterious event is often called the Phantom Battle of New Orleans. The story begins with one of the most famous battles in American history. In January 1815, the United States and Britain fought a fierce battle near the city of New Orleans during the War of 1812. The American forces were led by a determined military leader named Andrew Jackson. At that time, Jackson was not yet president. He was simply a general trying to defend American land from a powerful British army. The battlefield was located just outside the city, in an area that is now preserved as Chalmette Battlefield. The battle itself was short, but extremely intense. British soldiers advanced across open land toward American defensive positions. Cannons fired, rifles cracked, and smoke filled the air. The noise must have been deafening, as thousands of soldiers fought in a matter of minutes. When the battle ended, the result shocked the world. The American forces had won a major victory, while the British Army suffered heavy losses. For the United States, the victory became a symbol of strength and national pride. But for the land where the battle happened, the story did not end there. Years later, strange reports began appearing from people who lived near the battlefield. Some farmers working late in nearby fields said they heard distant cannon blasts during the night. Others claimed they heard the sound of soldiers shouting orders or the rhythm of drums echoing faintly across the land. At first, people thought these stories were simply imagination, but the reports continued. Visitors walking near the battlefield after sunset sometimes described hearing what sounded like musket fire far away, even though no one else was present. A few claimed they heard the faint sound of marching footsteps moving across the ground. When they turned to look, there was nothing there. No soldiers, no battle, just silence again. Over time, these strange experiences led people to believe that something unusual might be happening at the battlefield. Some locals began calling it the Phantom Battle, as if the memory of the fight itself was somehow replaying in the air. One explanation people suggest is connected to the idea of a residual haunting. This theory says that extremely intense events, especially battles filled with fear, pain, and emotion, can leave a kind of energy behind in the environment. According to this belief, under certain conditions, that energy might replay like a recording. People nearby might hear sounds from the past, even though no ghosts or spirits are actually present. It would be like history echoing through time. While this idea sounds mysterious, many scientists are skeptical. They believe there are more logical explanations for the sounds people report. For example, distant noises can travel strangely through cold night air. Sounds from faraway traffic, fireworks, or construction can sometimes bend and echo across open land, creating strange effects. Animals can also produce noises that may sound unusual when heard in the dark. Still, the reports are interesting because they share similar details. Many people who claim to hear the Phantom Battle describe the same sounds: cannons, gunfire, drums, and marching. Some even say the sounds appear to move across the battlefield, as if invisible armies are advancing. Another reason the legend has remained popular is the powerful history connected to the location. The Battle of New Orleans was one of the last major battles of the War of 1984, and it involved thousands of soldiers fighting in a dramatic and emotional moment. Places where intense events happen often become centers for ghost stories and legends, and battlefields are especially famous for that. Across the world, many old battle sites have similar stories. People claim to hear marching soldiers, clashing weapons, or distant battle cries long after the fighting ended. The Phantom Battle of New Orleans is simply one of the most famous examples in the United States. Today, the area around Chalmette Battlefield is peaceful. Green fields stretch across the land, and tall trees move gently in the wind. Visitors walk through the park, reading historical signs and learning about the battle that once took place there. During the day, it feels like a normal historical site. But at night, the atmosphere changes. The open fields grow quiet. The nearby Mississippi River moves slowly in the darkness. The wind passes through the grass, sometimes creating soft whispering sounds. In that kind of environment, it becomes easier to imagine how old stories might feel real. Tour guides and local historians sometimes share the phantom battle legend with visitors. Some people find the story thrilling, while others simply see it as an interesting piece of local folklore. Either way, it adds a layer of mystery to an already historic place. There are both positive and negative sides to how this legend exists today. On the positive side, stories like the Phantom Battle help keep history alive. Many visitors become curious about the legend and decide to learn more about the actual Battle of New Orleans. This helps preserve interest in an important historical event. Tourism also benefits from the mystery. People enjoy exploring historical locations that have unusual stories connected to them. The legend encourages visitors to think about the past in a deeper way. But there are also some negative aspects. Sometimes, ghost stories can overshadow real history. Instead of focusing on the soldiers who fought and died during the battle, people may become more interested in the paranormal legend. There is also the risk of exaggeration. Over time, stories grow bigger as they are retold. Details change, and what may have started as a simple strange sound becomes a dramatic ghost story. In my opinion, the Phantom Battle of New Orleans is fascinating not because it proves anything supernatural, but because it shows how powerful history can be. When an event leaves a strong mark on a place, people remember it for generations. The land becomes connected to the story, and the imagination fills the quiet spaces with echoes of the past. Even if the sounds people hear have natural explanations, the legend reminds us that battlefields are not ordinary places. They hold memories of real people who lived, fought, and lost their lives there. That alone is powerful enough to create a sense of mystery. And when the wind moves across an empty battlefield at night, carrying distant sounds through the darkness, it is easy to understand why some people believe history itself might still be whispering. Today, the present situation at Chalmette battlefield is peaceful and carefully preserved as part of a national historical park. Visitors can walk through the fields, see monuments, and learn about the Battle of New Orleans through educational displays. The area is maintained to protect its historical value, and guided tours often share both the true history and the mysterious Phantom Battle legend. While most people now see the story as folklore rather than fact, the legend continues to attract curious visitors who wonder if the echoes of the past might still linger in the quiet Louisiana night. If you enjoyed exploring these mysteries with me, make sure to like this video and share it with your friends who love strange history and unexplained legends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss our next mystery. There are many more incredible stories waiting to be uncovered.